Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to crack open the Master Plan for Digital Security. It's a document that's pretty much the blueprint for protecting a nation's most sensitive data, NISTS Special Publication 853. In a world where digital threats are just constant, this isn't some hypothetical question from a textbook. For governments, for massive corporations, and really for any organization handling sensitive info, it's a critical daily challenge, and the consequences are very, very real. I mean, the digital landscape today is basically a minefield. And we're not just talking about some lone hacker in a basement anymore. We're talking about sophisticated cyber attacks from state-sponsored groups, the risk of insiders who go rogue, and even things that seem harmless, like data mining, that can expose our most sensitive information. So, to defend against this huge range of threats, you can't just sit back and play defense, reacting to attacks as they happen. You need a proactive master plan, a really detailed blueprint for building a powerful digital fortress. So, where does that blueprint come from? Well, it's from the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, as you've probably heard it called. The document is called Special Publication 800-53, and it's really the foundational guide for securing federal information systems, but it's also become the benchmark for organizations all over the world. Okay, before we dive any deeper, let's get a really key term straight. When we say information system, we're not just talking about a single computer. You have to think bigger. It's the whole ecosystem, the people, the processes, the technology, everything that touches a piece of information from the second it's created to the moment it's deleted. And the building blocks of our digital fortress? They're called security controls. A control is just a specific safeguard or a countermeasure. Think of them as the individual bricks, the traps, the rules, and the procedures that actually make the fortress secure. Okay, so let's get into it. At its absolute heart, this entire massive framework is built around one single powerful concept: managing risk. It's not about eliminating risk, because, let's be honest, that's impossible. But it's about understanding it, reducing it, and making smart, informed decisions about what level of risk is acceptable. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The framework brings together two sides of the same coin. On one side, you have information security, which is all about protecting the system itself. And on the other, you have privacy programs, which focus on protecting our personal data. What NIST 853 does so brilliantly is integrate them both, creating this shared responsibility for one cohesive security strategy. All right, so how do we start building this fortress? Well, we start right at the front door. We have to control who gets in and what they can do once they're inside. Let's call this first step guarding the gates. And this is where we meet our first family of controls, called access control. These are literally the gatekeepers of your digital fortress. They cover everything from how you create and manage user accounts to how you identify and authenticate people, and even what happens if someone tries to log in with the wrong password too many times. And this is a perfect example of a control that is so simple, but just incredibly effective. Think about it. By showing you the date and time of your last login, the system gives you the power to immediately spot any suspicious activity on your account. It's a simple, elegant little security tripwire. The truth is, a lot of these controls are already part of our daily digital lives. That really frustrating moment when you're locked out of your email? Yeah, that's not a bug. It's a security feature. It's a control designed specifically to stop what are called brute force attacks. But getting through the gates is just the first step. Once an authorized user is inside, the job is far from over. The fortress needs strong internal walls to protect its most critical areas. We're talking about things like segmenting networks, encrypting data, and making sure the systems themselves haven't been tampered with. Let's call this building strong walls. And as we look at the controls for these internal protections, you'll start to notice a key phrase that pops up again and again: organization defined. For instance, this control right here says to review a public website for sensitive data at an organization-defined frequency. So what does that actually mean? This brings up a really crucial question about the whole framework, right? Is it just a rigid set of rules that everyone has to follow exactly the same way? Does NIST tell you if you should scan your website daily or weekly or monthly? And the answer is nope, it doesn't. And that's exactly what makes this framework so powerful. It isn't a rigid one-size-fits-all checklist. It's a flexible toolkit. Each organization tailors the controls to fit their needs. So for that review frequency, a hospital might say they need to do it daily because the risk of exposing patient health info is catastrophic. A big bank might do it hourly. It all depends on their unique systems, their risks, and their mission. But a fortress with strong walls and secure gates is totally useless if you can't see an attack coming. And that's where the watchers on the wall come in. The controls for continuous monitoring, analysis, and responding to incidents. See, security isn't a static state. It's this continuous life cycle. First, you have to proactively scan for weaknesses and vulnerabilities. Then, you're constantly reviewing system logs, looking for anything weird that might signal an attack. When something does happen, you need a plan to handle it. And finally, you have to actively test your own defenses, a lot of times by simulating an attack yourself. And this is where it gets really cool. One of the best ways to test your defenses is with what's called a red team exercise. You're essentially hiring a team of ethical hackers, the good guys, to try and break into your own fortress. Their whole goal? Find the weak spots before a real adversary does. And all of this, it brings us to what might be the single most important takeaway of all. This digital fortress we've been talking about, well, it isn't some static monument you build and then walk away from. It can't be. Instead, it's a living, breathing system. It has to be constantly monitored, tested, updated, and adapted to face new threats, new technologies, and a constantly changing digital world. The work is never really done. So, to wrap this all up, what is NIST 853? Well, it's a huge catalog of security and privacy safeguards. It's a flexible framework, not some rigid checklist. It's built on that core idea of continuous risk management, and it brings together both system security and individual privacy. And ultimately, it's the essential blueprint for building a resilient digital defense. This framework gives us an incredible foundation for security today, but it leaves us with a big, lingering question for tomorrow. As technologies like AI and quantum computing start to emerge, the very nature of threats is going to change. So, how will our digital fortresses have to evolve? Because in this never-ending battle for digital security, the only thing that's constant is change.